The dog spay and neuter debate. What really is the best age to spay and neuter? What about the risk of mammary cancer? And is it possible that gasp even your vet is wrong? I recently did a short video on delaying spaying and neutering your dogs, generated a lot of controversy, such as my vet saying there aren't really any studies to support that. But there's risk for waiting. Like, what about the risk of your dog developing mammary cancer? For years as a practicing veterinarian, I said the same thing. Mrs. Jones, it's really important that little Fluffy here, we have her spayed prior to her first heat cycle. We want to ensure for little Fluffy here that we're going to decrease the risk of her developing mammary gland cancer. That's kind of one of the core principles that was ingrained in us in veterinary school. It was like, we want to ensure that these dogs, these cats, they're spayed or neutered prior to 6 months of age. It's important that we control animal population. Then secondarily, we're taught about the health benefits. In particular, we spay these female dogs prior to the first heat cycle. Their chance of ever developing mammary gland cancer, 0. There was never a discussion around possible health consequences. First, talk about the studies. There's been a couple of recent studies come out. Benjamin and Lynette Hart, they're the co-authors. And what they've shown is that for many dogs, there's a 2 to 4 times increased chance of developing joint disorders with early spay and neuter, 2 to 4 times chance of developing many types of cancers with certain breeds with early spay and neuter. They've now studied 35 different breeds, and it really does vary amongst every dog. In general, we're seeing the medium, the larger breeds, they're the ones that are having increased risk of joint-related disorders. What they found with the golden retrievers, spaying them at any age increased the risk of then developing certain types of cancer such as lymphoma by 2 to 4 times. Likewise with the male Doberman pinschers, they're suggesting that you never neuter your male Doberman. The study showed there was no correlation or an increase in number of joint disorders with the small breeds, but it did show in 2 of the specific small breeds, the Boston Terrier and the Shih Tzu, they had an increased risk of developing cancers if they were spayed before 6 months of age. I'll put a link to those specific studies in the description box, along with the diagram that shows the 35 different breeds and their suggested age and when is the best time to spay or neuter those breeds. But to address some of the comments and some of the primary concerns that I've read, yes, is there an increased risk of your dog developing mammary cancer if she's allowed to go through a few different heat cycles? Yes, there's a slight increased risk. But you need to balance out the risks and put everything in perspective. I mean, what they're saying for most of those breeds is not that you never spay or neuter your dog. They're saying delay spaying or neutering. So maybe that means your female dog goes through 2 heat cycles and then you have her spayed. Then by doing that, you can decrease the chance of your dog getting these joint disorders, also decrease the chance of your dog ever developing some of these other types of cancers, such as lymphoma, such as bone cancer, such as hemangiosarcoma. And the other big point that needs to be made is, guess what? Sometimes the experts are wrong. Not everything I say is correct, but I make a big point of learning from my mistakes. And just because someone has great eye contact and they speak with authority doesn't mean they're right. It is important to sort of step back and look at this big picture. Clearly the sex hormones are important and they're impacting so many different things going on in your dog's body. So it makes sense 100% to me that when we are spaying and neutering animals prior to 6 months of age, we're going to have more than just the impact of them losing those sex hormones. We know that these hormones are really important for normal muscle, bone, and soft tissue development. So if we remove these hormones early on, it makes complete sense to me why we see an increase in joint-related disorders, why there's correlations with an increase in certain types of cancers. But when you are an impressionable student in veterinary school, you have a wise professor up there speaking, say like, this is what it is, this is the best age. By doing this, we're going to keep these animals healthy, we're going to prevent the chance of them ever developing mammary cancer, we're going to prevent over pet population. We're like, oh, obviously that's it. Like, you don't question it. The little poodle here, if she was a little puppy, even though she's a small breed, I would be waiting until 2 years of age before I had her spayed. And one last thing, if you're seeing me as an authority, just don't take everything I say at face value. I encourage you to question it as well. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Veterinary Secrets of the Spay and Neuter Dog Debate. Click up there to subscribe, hit the bell to sign up for notifications, and when you click that link directly in the box below, I can send you a copy of my free book.